Okay, it's Saturday, whatever day this is. Don't think wheat's gonna go today. I hand threshed some yesterday after work and ran it through the tester, and it was between about 18.5 and 19.5. And elevator cuts off at 15, so that's not gonna work. And I doubt it loses 4.5 points. It'd have to do it by about lunchtime today in order for me to have enough time to go down and get it all cut. But I'll go check it again today anyhow. It's pretty good looking wheat, in all honesty. It wouldn't be a big deal to get it done this weekend if they'd take the rain out of tonight and tomorrow morning. But we got a 30% chance overnight and a 50% chance first thing in the morning. And then it sounds like tomorrow's supposed to be cloudy the rest of the day, I think is what they're saying. So there were a couple guys cutting yesterday. I bet there'll be a couple more cutting today, but they're all gonna be guys that are drying it. I'd like to find a PTO dryer specifically for wheat, because one of the hardest things about drying wheat is when you get it in the dryer, it packs so tight you can't push air through it, and then you get cold spots and hot spots, spots that over dry. Basically all you gotta hope for is that in the end it all evens out. Where you get a recirculating PTO dryer, like a field dryer, and that eliminates it, because you put the grain in there and then it just continuously pulls it out of the bottom, dumps it on top, pulls it out, dumps it, pulls it out, dumps it, and like the name says, keeps recirculating it. So you don't get the hot spots and the cold spots. The grain's constantly moving so it dries even. And actually Al, the guy that got me started on all that stuff out in Charles City, he's got a 500 bushel, I can't remember the name of it, it starts with a G. Can't remember the name offhand. They're kind of red and white. He's got a 500 bushel PTO dryer that he said I could have if I can get it home. Problem is they don't really break down that well, and I don't know how the hell I'd get it home, because a 500 bushel dryer is like, I don't even have anything here to compare it. It's basically a damn grain bin on wheels is what it is. It's so big. And it's too tall to haul. It's too wide to haul. And like I say, they don't really come apart into any smaller pieces than what they are. But anyhow, what we're gonna do, at least this morning, until we get a chance to go over and check wheat, is we got one heck of a dew last night, which I kind of figured, because it got down into the low 60s. I gotta go do some brush hogging for one of my landlords. That's my payment for the ground rather than doing it in cash. So we're gonna get the 077 hooked up to the brush hog here and go do a little bit of brush hogging. which I got a bunch of stuff I need to get mowed of my own too, so we're gonna leave it hooked up, and if it ends up raining, I'll go do some more brush hogging tomorrow afternoon, because if I don't run wheat today, we get done doing this brush hogging in the morning. So I told him I'd get it done today. I want to, while I know for sure the weather's nice, I want to get the applicator hooked back up, get it up off the ground so I can run my antifreeze through it and get that winterized and get that out of here, and probably do the U-bolts on the 4150 and some other odds and ends if we can't cut wheat. Well, it ain't overly tall, but he texted me, said he wanted it mowed, so beans back here. I figured for sure when I was planting this whole area back here, like from behind that water, I figured all this was going to be the sacrificial zone for all the deer. There's not a single deer print out there. Like this whole field, I figured there was going to be deer issues. The only animal damage in this entire field, all 4 pieces of it, is right along the river where there's been a woodchuck eating on them, and I think part of that's also flood damage. So I am thoroughly impressed with how well this field's doing. It just needs a ripper drug through it this fall, hopefully. Because my God, is it hard. Okay, that's all done. Didn't take as long as I thought it would. I was only out here. How long was I out here? Hour and a half. I got out here about 9:30. It's 11 o'clock now, so not too bad. But run back and grab my pickup and we'll go check wheat. I don't think it's going to be down below 15%. It had to get down 4.5 points. Then I checked it. When I checked it yesterday, it was 330. It didn't have it. I don't think so, but we're going to check it anyhow. All right. Oop, I need my little can. So here's my big old wheat crop. Hopefully. I mean, it's pretty decent looking wheat. It gets a little shorter out in the back, but then that side looks pretty good. It's just got some mare's tail in it. But I don't like spraying herbicide on wheat because then it makes it hard to get rid of the straw, especially for the people that are doing gardens. Because the number of people that I have had ask me if it's been sprayed with any sort of herbicide, and because they've had issues with residual being left on the straw, which is actually a fairly common thing. And they've spread it on their gardens, and the next thing they know, their garden's dead because the residual herbicide on the wheat got into the soil and killed everything. And honestly, I've never really honestly had a call to spray any herbicide on any of my wheat. For the most part, it's all stayed pretty clean. The only time I ever really had any issue was, when did I have wheat on my uncle's? 3 years ago? Whenever it was I had, well, this wasn't like this yesterday. Whenever it was I had wheat on my uncle's, I think it was 3 years ago, and we had a really wet summer around wheat cutting time. And I had a mess of ragweed get in it. By the time, if I could have cut the wheat on time, it would have been fine. It never would have been an issue, but because it took forever to get to the point to where wheat was dry enough to cut, the ragweed poked its head through, and then I had ragweed in it, which not really a big deal, except for it makes it smell funny. And anybody that knows wheat knows that you better not have any sort of musty smell or garlicky smell or oniony smell or any sort of smell, because all of a sudden now you got problems getting it off the truck because the elevator doesn't want to take it. Oops, no, don't dump my weed out. So anyhow, I got to get enough heads to kind of halfway fill that bucket for them, or fill that can for the most part, and we'll go back and hand thrash it and see what it tests for moisture. Okay, so we take a 5-gallon bucket and we dump all that in there. And I use a drywall mud mixer. And you got to run it in reverse, that way it pushes everything down into the bucket, because if you run it forward, it throws everything out of the bucket. Should have everything pretty well cleaned out. And while everything's at the bottom of the bucket, you can throw some of this out to make the next part a little easier. And this part would be easier if I actually made a windowing frame like I've been saying I was going to do. But you just take a screen. This is an old piece of screen door screen that was with, I found it in the shed somewhere. It came with the house, needless to say. But I need to take some 2x4 and make a square frame to staple this to, and it would make this job a lot easier. Huh? You have one what? Okay, so what she had wasn't gonna work, so we're back to this. And like I say, if this thing actually had a 2x4, you know, standing on end so you're that deep, then you could actually loft it, like actually winnowing grain, so that you can get the stuff to blow away, instead of just getting all the light stuff to float to the top and then you can screen it off by hand. This part is a lot easier. That needs to be a rain day project. But this is how they, well, kind of how they used to thrash wheat. In all reality, it would be, you'd have a thrashing floor, which is generally considered the main floor of the barn, and you'd beat the living dog crap out of it with a flail, and then you'd sweep it all up, and then they'd have winnowing baskets, and you would winnow the wheat or the grain, and that would clean the chaff out of it. You'd end up with clean grain. And after you go through that, and like I say, if I actually built a winnowing screen, I could probably get it even cleaner than that, but you get a sample that's relatively clean enough to do a moisture test on. So close. If it just wouldn't rain tonight. Oops. I think my battery's getting close to dead. Well, that ain't right. Greater than 22. What's she barking at now? I could believe that. So it's lost about 3 points ish. If it just wouldn't, if that rain would hold off. But it ain't gonna. It just ain't gonna do it today. And the kicker of it is, you actually get better grain quality out of wheat to cut it between like 17.5 and 20-ish% and dry it down artificially. And one of the things, the elevator I haul into, one of their, I don't know if you want to call it an excuse, but one of their things is they've always said that they've had a hard time getting rid of wheat. Which they're not really set up for it to be. It's never been a big. Wheat's never been a big deal for them. They were always a corn, soybean. That was their bread and butter. But they've always said they've had a hard time getting rid of wheat because of grain quality. So it's like, okay, you know the guys that are going to be bringing in wheat for the most part. So you go around, you call those guys, see how many acres they got out, figure out roughly how many bushels of wheat you're going to take in, so you know how much space to clear out. Wait till you got enough, and then fire up the dryer and just run it through the dryer real fast and let guys cut it at between, like 17 and 20, and bring it down through the dryer down to 13.5, 14, whatever you want to store it at. And save your grain quality that way, and then you got a higher quality wheat that's easier to get rid of. But I don't know if it's just that their dryer, that tower they've got, is not copacetic to drying wheat or what, but they don't want to do it. So anyhow, it is some good looking grain though. Well, I guess since wheat won't cut today, do a little more mowing, switch tractors. I need to get the lot down here chopped, that way I can bring the I guess I don't need to get it chopped. I wanted to get it chopped so that it's out of the way when I bring the applicator bar back over here, so I don't gotta move it to mow again. I've been falling behind on mowing back there. It's been, normally I try to mow it about every other time I mow the yard, and I think I've missed it twice now. I really want to build the tail wheel setup for this mower. I think it'd work a lot better. It wouldn't be hard. You can copy it from the pictures in the manual. At least I think we got the manual for it. I think that's how I remember knowing about it. applicator, and then it can come over here and get parked for now until I figure out where I'm gonna put it. All right, and we're back where we started this morning. I don't fully understand this storm. We're supposed to be getting this at there this evening. They're saying about between 7 and 8 o'clock. And I looked on there, I've been watching the radar since lunch, and there's a bunch of stuff like up in northern Wisconsin on the Canadian border right now. Nothing even remotely close to here, and you watch the radar and grab my can. There's nothing. And then between the 7:45 tick mark and the 8 o'clock tick mark, all of a sudden this massive storm materializes out of literally thin air. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because like I say, there's literally nothing at all until that little blip between two timestamps on the radar, and then there's all of a sudden this storm that just pops up out of literally nowhere. But anyhow, we'll get hooked onto the applicator here and run that down, and I got 3 gallons RV and a freezer dump in it. We'll crank the pump wide open and just run the wheel over by hand until we get that sucked through there, and then that can get out of here. The only reason it's there to begin with is because that's where I had to drop it, because I ran this thing through the 4th of July parade. Otherwise it would have been home a while ago, but haven't had a chance. Okay, I got the applicator, I got my antifreeze. We're gonna go over to my house and do the winterizing where I got more room. I'd like to run a little bit of water through it and flush that fertilizer out before I run antifreeze through it. So that's what we're gonna do. Hopefully the wheels don't fall off. Okay, I swung up to the house and I got a few gallons of water in there. So come down here in the flat spot and this down and still be able to turn the wheel. About like that. I need to rig up probably. Actually, if you just make something that would utilize that bolt hole there, actually, theoretically, you could just, looks like it's a 3/8 bolt, just run a bolt in there so you got something to put a head on so you could run it with a drill. Make this a little easier. You gotta be careful just going after it, because you don't want to run your hand into that chain. Alright, so so she should be all winterized. Basically, you just start pumping well, I ran all the water through it. And that flushed all the fertilizer out of everything. And it's real easy to tell because the gauges start off really dark brown because the stuff discolors sitting in the hoses and stuff. And because 28's damn near clear when it's fresh. But at least the stuff that I get is. Maybe there's some out there that's got a color to it. But we'll run all the water through it. That flushes all the lines until you start pushing air. Dump your antifreeze in the tank, and then just start running it until you get solid pink up there in the gauges, which some of them have already drained out. Because I think I'm going to convert them check valves back over to the 5-pound caps or whatever, the yellow ones or the black ones, whatever they came with. I think I'm going to put back in there, because I think they sold me 1-pound ones to put on it, and they don't hold for crap. So another small thing I want to change for next year. But anyway, once you get solid pink in there, then you know the pump is full, so you don't got to worry about that freezing. There's still a little bit left in the tank, so you know the lines are full. Which I forgot my one cap over. It's still in the toolbox of the 1800 for here. And then I'll cap that, and then this hose can come off and go in the barn. That way it doesn't deteriorate. And I got to figure out, once I'm done with wheat and the 525 is back in there and the planter goes back over the corner where it belongs, I got to figure out the best way to arrange that to get the toolbar in there. It'll be nice once I get my shed situation figured out back here. Hopefully I might go over and talk to the guy tomorrow if we end up getting that rain tonight, so I can at least see if it's even a possibility. But once I get my lean-to shed dealio figured out here, hopefully I have enough room in that to get the toolbar and the tank in there, along with the fertilizer spreader, the nurse tank, and the seed wagon. The other wagons can stay outside. They don't need to sit in. But hopefully I would have enough room to at least get that stuff in there, because that wouldn't be so bad sitting in there if it was easier to move. But it's kind of it's even more of a boat anchor than the planter. But and I still need to get a storage stand made for that so that it's not sitting there tongue down. But anyway, so I guess I gotta call it for today, because my sister and her boyfriend are in town from Nebraska, so we're going to dinner. So I gotta get the white back over to Mom and Dad's so that we can do the U-bolts on it and put the duals back on, and then it can come back over here and go back in the barn. And then we still gotta look at pulling the radiator out of it before fall, because I need to fix that little problem before it breaks completely off and either gets into the fan or cracks the radiator or whatever it's gonna do. But it got us through spring, that's all that counts. And side dressing, so it got us through more than it needed to. But that can come off once it's in the barn and in a spot where it doesn't need to move for a week or so, because it'll probably take them that long to get the radiator fixed. So this winter I'd really like to find a spot to put it where I can yank the motor out of it. And I don't know, maybe I don't need, the clutch in this thing's been slipping again, but I'm not convinced it's an actual clutch problem, because if it was an actual clutch problem, it would do it all the time, and it comes and it goes. And what I'm thinking is, whatever this oil leak is up here in the valley under the injection pump, wherever it's leaking from, that I have to figure out where it's leaking from, I'm thinking it runs down the bell housing and gets in between the crack between the engine side and the 3-speed side, and actually gets the clutch wet with oil. We put a new rear main seal in this last time the engine was out, So I don't think the rear main's leaking, because we did the crank repair sleeve and then the updated rear main seal for it. So I'm thinking that's the actual problem. I don't think I've actually got a clutch problem. So if that is the case, then it's just a matter of fixing that oil leak so it quits getting the clutch wet, which would explain why it would come and go. The clutch gets hot, burns the oil off, it's not a problem anymore. But if that's all that needs done, and I don't need to mess with the clutch, then it doesn't need to come out. But that being said, I've never had the oil pan off of this, so just knowing every other thing that's been an issue with the tractor and just the general state of repair that it was in when we got it, it might not be a bad idea to just yank it out anyhow, so that it's on a stand and it's easier to work on top. And then while we're in the process, roll the engine over, pull the pan, and inspect the bottom, or inspect the crank and rods and stuff, and see if everything's kosher in there. But we're getting like 30 steps ahead of where we're at right now, so that's in the pipe. So anyhow, that's enough talking for today. This video has already been basically pointless, but this is farming. Some days there's a lot to do, and other days it's the little piddly needing done, but not all that exciting work. So this is one of those days, and it's about the time of summer where that becomes the norm. So anyhow, with that being said, that's it for this one. We'll catch you guys on the next one. I'm gonna find a place to park this thing.